If you know someone who has missed the meeting, or if you'd like to get this information again, this will be posted online. I hope the meeting will be up by the end of the day today, but right now at the SDE, we are filming a lot of different Zoom meetings. So the time lag for us to get meetings up online, it's increasing all the time, but hopefully we'll have it up pretty quickly. We're now at 165 people in the meeting. If you just joined, make sure that you're muted. Click on the bottom left mute button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Also today, throughout the meeting, I have a colleague here, Kathleen Skinner, and she will be monitoring the chat box for questions, and she will add to the conversation as needed if she sees something there. She's our Director of World Languages at the SDE, so another electives / specials kind of person who knows what it's like to be in our world. Kathleen, are you here this morning? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, great. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen, and this PowerPoint I will have available as soon as the meeting is over. So I will upload it to the SDE website, and then I'll also share it on social media. So if you need links from it or information, you will be able to have access to it. So, all right. So good morning all again. I'm calling this morning's meeting Plan C, or we're all in this together. Plan A, of course, was to finish out the school year like normal. And Plan B was, a delay of a few weeks. And now we're in Plan C world. Also the world that I thought the lyrics from High School Musical just keep going through my head over and over again. If you need to get in contact with me anytime, please send me an email. My office phone is not currently being used, but it does send voicemails to my email. I've been working from home. So you can give me a call if you want and leave a message, or just email me directly. You can also reach out over social media, of course, anytime. There we go. All right, so our purpose today is to help all of you build an instructional framework for your students, your school, and your situation. And I just want to start off by saying your situation is unique to you. No one else knows what you need to do and what is best for your situation. Elementary instruction is different from secondary. Even ensemble classes at the secondary level can be different. Do what you need to do for your kids, and take what you can from this and toss what you don't need. So the 4 areas we're going to go through this morning are working in this new environment, supporting families and students, teaching in a new paradigm, and then we'll have lots of time for discussion at the end. So working in this new environment, #1 goal, I think, of all of us at this time: be part of the solution, not the problem, and ask if you can help your administration at any time, and do what they ask you to do. So if they reach out and ask you to not teach your subject area during this time, which I've seen nationally has been happening, and support in other ways, do it. And reach out and ask if you can help before they reach out to you. Be a part of that solution. If they ask you to help deliver meals, go ahead and do that. That would be a great way to connect with your students at the elementary level if you are able to do so. So you could still advocate for your subject area with other teachers, maybe by supporting them, or you could reach out and connect to students and help them, remind them you're there for them. Just do what they ask you to do and be part of the solution. And the other thing you could keep in mind, we're not sure if we'll go back to school on the exact starting date that we have right now in August, but you might start thinking about a welcome back assembly for the fall and what you could do to help develop that. Because I know many times the music teachers in the building are asked to lead those efforts. And then supporting parents and students. Of course, the parents care about the canceled memories for their children, the concerts that aren't going to happen, a contest that's not going to happen, graduation. So communicate in a way that shows that you care about them and their children and not your program. And you might think about, as you're preparing learning opportunities, keep in mind differentiation and set a bar for the super motivated, and then also have, if you'd like to take it back a few steps, here's what you could do, the Netflix and chill population. I saw a post on Facebook this morning that was a song parody assignment, and the teacher was devastated because the kids didn't put any effort into it, and she was going to reassign it to them again and ask for a second try. But just keep in mind that maybe you need to ask some of the students to just research a song that describes the time that they're in, rather than trying to rewrite song lyrics at this moment. And one other thing to keep in mind for your parents and students are students with special needs. They are off schedule right now. They don't have their paras, they don't have their aides. They're not in their home classroom environment. I hadn't even thought about this till the other day, but I'm sure students with special needs, this is impacting them severely. So you might especially check in with your students with special needs and make sure that they're not feeling forgotten, and find out what they need. So, of course, our students at all levels have lost multiple things, everything on the screen. Acknowledge the loss. I've seen some of you doing that through social media already. Let them know that you're disappointed and upset. And then provide a plan. If you know what will happen with the events that you have control of, let them know what you think might happen, and then pass on what you've learned about other events. There's a possibility that camps this summer might have an altered schedule, or may not be happening at the time that we thought. So reach out and see if you can find that information for your students to answer their questions. I was in a call over a week ago with Dr. Tim and Scott Lang, and they did this as a national call, and they had this wonderful quote that when you sign your child up for music, the parents join a community of people who care for their child and will work to do what is in their best interest. So just keep in mind that even in history's most difficult times, the arts have emerged as the voice of reason and calm, and your classroom is more than a building, and you're more than a teacher. We're all part of this community, and it's one filled with kids and parents and teachers who give love and acceptance unconditionally. That's the wonderful thing about the arts. So we have this paradigm shift right now. We're grieving the loss of events, and some students won't be able to get these back as they are seniors, but this could be a really great opportunity for everyone. Because for the first time, we don't have those performance constraints that many of us follow throughout the year. We don't have contests, we don't have a final concert, we don't have graduation. So now we can think about, what do we want to teach? Why do we want to teach it? How are we going to teach it? And how will we measure success? So you might think about your first lesson or video or whatever it is as you reach out to students and parents. You're the face and welcoming voice of the school for many students, even elementary up through. So remind the students that it will be okay, and lower fears for both the students and the parents. And you might ask around to other people in your district or other people who teach elementary music or whatever it is around the state, and see what they're saying to their parents and students. Copy it. You might consider hosting an online meeting for this and invite the parents to watch. And don't worry if you feel like, oh, I only got 20 kids to be in my meeting. It's okay. Record the meeting like I'm doing now, and then post it to Google Classroom or YouTube afterwards, and allow students to watch it as they have time. And in that first meeting, you might let them know about those immediate concerns, the trip plans, the cancellations, instrument distribution and collection at the end of the year, your new plan for marching band camp, summer opportunities, things that might still be happening this summer. Find out what's going on with your typical activities and get that information out to the students, and remind them that it will be okay. We will get through this. So overall teaching, continuous learning should be occurring from next week to the end of the school year. And I'd encourage you to build on prior learning with clear, concise lessons, and have those lessons solve problems and not create them. Don't ask your students to do a million steps in technology or something else that they haven't ever done before. I've seen a few parents post on social media that they couldn't even figure out how to navigate the lesson. So keep that in mind. Keep it simple, stupid, right? You need to follow your own district's policy on these lessons. At the SDE, we recommended that you do not assess at this time and don't give grades. But if your district is asking you to assess, then you need to be assessing your students. You need to be submitting grades. Just remove as many barriers as possible, and remember that the arts should be joyful, student-centered, and full of creativity, right? That's our jam, so we can do that. And Dr. Tim and Scott, again, just a reminder about your lessons. If you focus on things that benefit you, it says you're only concerned about you. And if you focus on things that benefit the students, then it shows you are concerned about them. So be creative with your lesson designs. Consider the learner. Remember, do they have internet? And even if they have devices at home, do they have the bandwidth for every single device to be running at once? Be willing to improv in the moment, change gears, toss the lesson plan. We're all learning. Give yourself grace and start over again. Ask other arts teachers for help, because we've got a lot of people with great ideas across the state. And again, remember your students with special needs. You might reach out to those families and see if they have a sibling in the house that can help. Maybe they have an aide that comes to the house every day if they're severe. Just try to make sure that they're still in the classroom environment even though they're at home, because again, they might have been forgotten about a little bit, unfortunately. So possible assignments, these are just ideas I've had or other people have shared with me. Just a couple ideas. These are all for different arts areas. Again, review what the students know and try to enrich their lives at home at this time. And then there's other issues to think through, of course. The instrument return, music return, uniform returns, if you've got uniforms out right now, money owed for reads, books, all those different things. Your summer rehearsal schedule, what's that going to look like? When can you get back together? And then one thing that I hadn't thought of until last week is connecting with students who are enrolling for next year. This could have major impact in our classrooms, especially because we focus so much on those concerts and mini performances at the end of the school year to bring in our new kiddos each fall. So you might reach out to your current students and ask them for referrals, siblings, friends of siblings. Use your student leaders, your seniors, your juniors, to create videos and promote your class on social media. Reach out to the counselors in your building site and remind them to re-enroll your current students. And then talk with the teachers at the lower levels. If you are the middle school band director, reach out to the 5th grade and maybe even the 4th grade teachers if you're not getting a lot of response, and ask them to promote your class. Send them some videos that they can send out over their platforms, and flex your social media skills as much as you can. Remind parents that you have this great thing going and you'd love to have their kids in your class next year. Okay, so we're going to do some discussion now. Online learning versus offline learning is one of the big areas that I think we need to discuss, because I know internet access is so uneven across the state. And then just generally brainstorming and sharing ideas for learning. So I'm sure there's been some discussion in the chat box. Kathleen, before we get to lesson ideas, could you share with me any questions that folks have?
The one question that came up was, does anyone have ideas for upper elementary music assignments that use household objects? There's one response about using recycled instruments and using drum, packing tape, buckets, and things like that. Would you like to expand?
Sure, yeah, I think whoever responded kind of hit it on the head, that those found sound composition opportunities, especially if you could have the students create ostinatos and put that together on different timbres, whatever it is, an oatmeal box, a nice metal pan, and then something else. I mean, and if the students could record that and get that to you in some form, you might be able to share those next fall when you're back together as a class. So yeah, that's a great idea for upper elementary. Okay, so within the chat box, go ahead and start sharing if you've got ideas for online learning or especially offline learning that doesn't require technology. I'd love to see that. I have on the call today Brian Powell from Little Kids Rock, and he has some ideas, I think mostly online, but some offline too. Brian, do you want to mention any ideas that you have?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here. I mean, you were just mentioning those found sound grooves. The Little Kids Rock organization has a lot of online resources that are and curricular ideas that are free. There's no login or password. I'll post the link where you can find those. But there's videos on found sound percussion lines. You know, if students have access to instruments, guitar, ukulele, keyboard, there's a lot of resources there. But I've had success even with traditional instrumentation, for example, you know, putting a backbeat on and then having my trombones hold out their long tones or create some improvisation activities over there. Again, if they can record them and share them and kind of build community there, I think that's good. There's a lot of online resources, drum machines where students you don't have to have a lot of background in creating beats or things like that, but they can use online drum machines that are free, work with Chromebooks, work with iPads, things like that, to build these rhythms. They can share them to collaborate. And then there's a lot of resources online that allow you to take a song, change the key, slow down the tempo, things like that. And you don't have to be a music tech whiz in order to make that happen. So I'll add some links into the chat box. There was also a recent article in School Band and Orchestra magazine, SBO magazine, that has a lot of links to online resources in Little Kids Rock's Jam Zone. And again, there's no login and password. So feel free to check those out. And if you have questions, you know, reach out and I'm happy to connect you with people who can give you some more ideas.
Great, awesome. Kathleen, I see lots of things going on in the chat. What else do we have?
Okay, so can you address copyright laws and sharing videos such as sing-alongs, virtual talent shows, kids posting songs in Facebook groups, and virtual classrooms?
That is a great question. I actually bought a book regarding copyright law in the music classroom at a conference I was at a few weeks ago, and then I promptly left it in my office 2 weeks ago. But anyway, yeah, you need to be real careful with what you're recording and sending out. I know, I think Katie Wonderly might be on this call. She's done some videos recently and she just reached out directly to the publishers to check about copyright. Katie, are you on at the moment? Can you share your process?
So I basically just sent a whole bunch of emails. A lot of the stuff that I'm using on my Facebook Lives are not under fair use or under public domain. And so I reached out directly. There's a great website. I'll see if I can link it in the comments. That's a running list of publishers and all of their things that they're allowing you to read books online. And a lot of the releases are different. So some of them are more forgiving, letting you post publicly, and some are very much a private posting only. They're only allowing private posting. So I'll try to post that in the comments once we're done. As far as music, I believe, and now don't quote me on this, but I believe any of the like folk songs are public domain and that should be okay. But so I'm using some recordings as well. And so I just reached out. I reached out to Timbaland, the pop artist, and he has a book that he released a song to go with it, and he gave me permission to use the song. And so people are feeling very generous right now. So if you have any questions or any like want to use this kind of things in a public way, I just suggest reaching out. Now I know Alfred has a portion of their website where you can apply for different releases, and I got approved for like to share publicly or live, but then I have to delete it immediately. Whereas if I wanted to keep it public on my page, it was going to be like $50 per song. So so I won't be using those. But there are different ways that you can go around it. Some are just offering it up for free. Some are making you still pay the royalties and things like that.
So when in doubt, I would say reach out.
Yes.
Because you could get yourself in a lot of trouble real quick if you violate those copyright laws.
Okay, someone's just posted a website on the chat group. that has information for copyright. And also someone has asked if you can start a common page that lists everyone, all the publishers that have given permission.
Yeah, I think that could be, I'm going to try to take all of the resources that I created and other things that I found and put those on the SDE Fine Arts page. And I will add a section about copyright and try to get the resources there.
I'm sorry, one additional comment was that there is a NAFME webinar on copyright today.
Oh, wonderful.
So a next question that has come up is, when will SDE have guidelines out? Because some districts are still saying they're waiting for guidelines from us, but so they're not moving forward.
Good question. So Oklahoma is a local control state, so every district has the power to decide what they would like to do for the rest of the school year, whether or not they will grade, what platforms they will use, or if they'll send home packets, etc. So that's up to the districts, not the STE. So district leadership should be working on that. And I know some districts have already taken that and run with it. They've sent out surveys to their families to figure out how many devices they have in the home and who has internet and who doesn't. So I'm sure your district should be taking some steps forward on that this week. What else do we have, Kathleen?
Participants are listing different resources on the chat box. Lots of different websites, lots of different ideas, videos that are available, professional learning groups that are meeting and presenting information. Here's one of Dr. Mike Raber has created a PBL. It's flexible enough to be used with beginners through high school, and they've offered the link. So what is the expectation regarding student contact for specials teachers? Is it district by district as a decision, or is there going to be some sort of state guideline?
Yes, unfortunately, and Kathleen's been in on these conversations, we have a difficult time as the specials electives folks advocating even at the state level for timing and what can be sent home, etc. And it's just that there's a lot of concern, I think, especially at the SDE, that we might overwhelm families with information if we put out some sort of an expectation of this is how many minutes a week, or you should do music twice a week, or etc. So right now we have not put any guidance out as far as how much time the students should be getting for each subject area. And that's up to local control again. So you might be asked as the elementary music person to not teach right now, or you might be asked to just support classroom teachers. I've seen some folks in other states where they've said, just work with the classroom teachers. So do what you can. You might just chart a new path and do what Katie and a few others have done, which is post your own Facebook Live sessions and get those out to your families as you can through the school Facebook website or their social media. And then it will just be kind of a moment of, you know, collective joy and a breath for the families instead of an exact lesson. And I don't think you'd be violating anything the district's asking you to do if you just put out a great video that's going to get the kids up and moving and singing for a moment. What else do we have, Kathleen?
There haven't been any new questions. There's a lot of suggestions about how to approach this and what different districts are doing in terms of lesson times, lengths of time, and you have answered those questions. Mm-hmm. There's some information offered from other states, things like bingo online, and creating paper packets for students to take home.
Mhm.
Are we able to link YouTube videos? That's the question.
That's another one where I would check with the creator of the video and see if they have ownership of it, or if they don't, then you need to find out who does and get the right permissions there. Should be okay, but you never know.
The Arts Council just posted that they are offering lessons every week on their website.
Great. Yeah, that is.
So,
Some of you might have noticed last week that PBS put out their programming list of things that will be available through their channels, and there wasn't anything arts based within that. So the Oklahoma Arts Council is trying to pick up some of that and get those out to students. So they're working for us as much as they can.
all right, there's some questions about how are we getting paper copies to our students and parents? Are we emailing through the classroom teacher?
Great question. We had a little bit of a panic moment last week because we were told that paper packets could not happen because of the virus. And then they've walked that back now, and they're saying that yes, paper packets can happen. So I would just suggest your district look at the latest CDC guidance on it. And I think as long as there's not excessive paper in there, and that no one's handled it maybe for a day or two, that people could come pick it up and it would be just fine. I think the virus only lives on surfaces for 2 to 3 days. So you should be able to get things home to students if that's how your school is taking care of it.
Okay, the next question is, can the State Department of Education please issue new social media guidelines for distance learning?
That would be a great idea. And I did see the other day, I don't remember what group it was. It might have just been on social media. But if you are doing online distance learning where students are coming into an online space, make sure that you're the first person into that room. Like on Zoom, you can set up a waiting room to make sure that you as the teacher are the first one in, and then make sure you're the last one out so that no discussion can happen between students or other things when you're not there online. And then you can also, I think, completely take the room down, like they shouldn't have access to it afterwards. So make sure you shut that down, whether it's in Google Meet or Zoom, etc. And then the other thing the person recommended, which is a horrible thing to have to think about, but we do need to think about it, is that when you're recording yourself, don't do it from a bedroom setting, and don't have a bed in the shot. Unfortunately, we do need to think about these things. So I'm actually in my spare bedroom, but you can only see the wall behind me right now. So it works out, but just keep those things in mind of best practices of things that you wouldn't do if your students were in a classroom, and try to adjust that for online. But I agree, the guidance for social media would be extremely helpful in this situation.
The next question is, can we load educational videos to Google Classroom without violating copyright?
I believe so. I think that Google Classroom is kind of a separate entity, and since only the students and parents in your district have access to it, or even in your classroom within your district, I think you should be okay putting it in just in Google Classroom. I'm not sure how you would ensure that no one records that and puts it elsewhere on social media, but Google Classroom, I would think, should be okay.
One comment for getting information to students is that some local newspapers are putting assignments in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe El Reno was starting that. I'm sure some others are too.
There are free Metropolitan Opera shows every day, and they have an educational area for that. There's other resources offered and suggestions throughout the chat box regarding resources regarding how to get information out to students.
Dr. Reiber, would you like to share your instrumental ideas? I know you put the link in the box.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. this, you know, it has come just from trying to do things for my own students there in Mustang. And what decided to do was use a process that combined a project-based learning approach along with a heavy dose of social emotional learning embedded in all of this. So the short version of this is 2 basic projects that the students can do asynchronously. They don't have to do this at any specific time. They can work it on their own. And we're using Google Classroom and Smart Music to manage the platforms to work through that. So project number 1, using with my beginners, they are playing a piece out of their beginning band book. We had started working on that right before we left. It's a solo in there called The Good Life. And what I've asked the students to do is go through, listen to the piece, and do a basic analysis. It's we're calling it an emotional analysis of the piece. They're going to use emojis and kind of talk about what does this piece say to them. And I'm asking them to enlighten a little bit in that process of why does the music do that for them? What elements in the music make it sound the way they think it sounds and creates the emotions that they think it creates? Then I'm asking them to do an emotional analysis of themselves. Well, how are they feeling right now? How are things around their house right now? You know, and do that same sort of thing. And then ask them to put those 2 things together and prepare or do a 2-week plan to prepare that solo for performance in their home. And ask them what they could do in playing that solo and doing the things that they're doing there in their preparation to better or to impact, I think is the word I want to use there, to impact the social and emotional environment in their home. How can they use their music to improve or to affect the things that are going on in their home? And then ask them to do a reflection about that afterwards. So I'm going to do that with my beginners. With my middle school students, 7th and 8th grade students, we've designed a composition project for them. They're going to use backing tracks and put a number of those on Google Classroom for them. Again, asking them to kind of do an emotional analysis of what's going on around their home. They're going to do that using sentence stems. So I've provided a number of sentence stems for them to kind of work through that and think about why they're making music in the first place and what kind of effects music has had on them up to this point, and then work from there into selecting 2 backing tracks, one that reflects their current emotional state, whatever that is, and then the other one that would be in opposition of that emotional state. So if they're stressed and unhappy right now, they're going to pick one that kind of suggests that, and then another one on the other side. And realizing that they're, you know, teenage type students, they, you know, there are times when they feel the way they want to feel, and I don't want to tell them what they're feeling is wrong. What I want to do is get them to be able to deal with their emotions right now and work through that process. So empower that with that choice, so they can pick that backing track and write a melody over that backing track that would reinforce their current emotional state. I mean, sometimes when the kids feel sad, they just want to go sit and listen to sad music. That's okay. All right. And we need to be able to let them do that. Or if they want to try to empower a change, be able to help them do that. So it's a step-by-step process that I've got there, and the link's up, and anything that I've put together, I'm more than willing to share with anybody. But those are the 2 projects that I'm going to be working on with my students, trying to combine, you know, the project-based approach along with, like I said, a pretty heavy dose of the social emotional learning piece that I think is the power of what we do as music educators right now. If we can find a way to empower them to affect whatever little change they can in their environment through their music, I think we've taught them a tremendous amount about music making, which I think is really powerful in what we can do right now. So with all the other constraints off, that's what we can focus on. Thanks.
Yeah. It's great.
Okay, a couple of more questions. Has anyone thought of a music menu to send out where they can pick 2 lessons a day?
I think that's a fabulous idea. It would definitely allow them differentiation and let them work at whatever pace that they want to work at. And especially if things are just chaotic in their house one day because everyone's tired of each other, then it'll give them some time and space to work at their own level. I think that's a wonderful idea. Oh, you're muted, Kathleen. There you go.
I'm sorry. Okay. So the next question is, how to contact families and parents. Do you have some suggestions on ways to do that? And I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one, especially if you're teaching K up through second grade or so. If your school district did not have some sort of communication platform that you had access to before this, then you probably aren't going to be able to reach out to your families in the way that you would like, especially since many of them, it's just a phone number contact. And I know from my time in some schools that those phone numbers don't work usually by the end of the year in a lot of situations. So you may not be able to reach out to them directly. Your best bet at the elementary level might be to try to send things through the classroom teacher, their homeroom teacher, and see if you can work communication that way, because maybe the classroom teacher does have more reliable communication methods than what you do at this point. Hopefully at the middle school and high school level, especially for ensemble classes, you probably have some sort of Facebook group or some sort of something set up for your students so you can talk to them in that space.
There are no new questions at the moment, just some suggestions about how to go about reaching out to parents. So in addition to what Elizabeth mentioned, some ideas of using PTA or PTO communications to get information out. And other teachers have offered some additional suggestions and conversations going on.
Perfect. Okay.
About virtual talent show. Would a virtual talent show break copyright?
Oh, yes. So our regular talent shows regularly break copyright. If you're charging money for those performances, then you are breaking copyright. If the students are just performing in front of the school and there's no money exchanged, then I think usually those fall under fair use. And you're pretty safe in that space, but yeah, charging money, having parents pay to go to the talent show, that's where you get in trouble. I would be wary of doing an online talent show with students singing Katy Perry, etc., because you just might run into an issue. Maybe not, but you might. But if you did have students who were playing out of their piano book or playing ukulele and they were singing, I don't know, a folk song, something that wasn't under copyright, you could probably do that. But I don't know, I think you'd need to check into it. If you're going to post those videos somewhere, you need to check into that before you take that step. One thing that maybe you could do is collect those from the students and then next fall use that performance to play before one of your concerts next fall. Use it as pre-concert music. That was a thought I had with compositions. If your students end up writing something, then we always need pre-concert music. You could play those before concerts next fall and share out what the students have done. So yeah, be careful of the copyright.
So returning to a couple of previous ideas, one is, do you think that using YouTube as a method to contact parents is a good idea?
Posting videos to YouTube and trying to get information out to students would work. I don't know that much communication would happen because it would be one-sided. So it might be best for you to, I mean, you could put information into a YouTube video and then put that onto the school's Facebook page and then follow the comments down below. But I don't know about communicating directly on YouTube. I think that might be a problem.
Another question, can you use Quaver when students don't have instruments at home?
Yes. You certainly could. I know I got an email from Quaver last week, I believe, and they were really excited. They had a lot of their resources up and ready to share. And if your students have devices at home or just computers, they should be able to log into the site and use it like you do at school. So you might check into Quaver's overall info site and find that information and share it out with your families. It could be a great way to keep the learning going during this time. Anything else?
There's a posting here about from the OSSAA, information that all personnel, regardless of who they are, have to restrain from practice at this time, but that is limited, I think, to the time that we're the SDE has established the closures.
And I think that's probably more in relation to preparation for contest and competitions. So hopefully, especially at secondary level, your students are still singing and playing a little bit during this time, and they haven't just set everything down. But if they have, it's okay. We'll get them back.
I'm sorry, there's more resources posted. Again, information about Quavers being free for now, other resources, and a Google Doc that's available, I believe, with a menu of activities that students can choose from.
Ah. Perfect. Yeah, and if you haven't been looking online at things on social media, people are just sharing everything. I find it very overwhelming at times, but if you go into Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you can find all sorts of resources there, especially for online learning. Offline learning, again, is a little bit thin. So if you have ideas or resources, please send those out to me because I would love to share them. The OSDE has an FAQ about COVID-19. And again, I'll put this slideshow up. I'll put it on Facebook here as soon as we get done, so you'll have access to it. But has lots of information in that FAQ. There are links to some resources within it that have to do with fine arts, but they're kind of difficult to find because there's just so much information. So that bit.ly link, OKFA resources, those are just ideas that I've compiled from different folks around the state. There's a learning ideas for 5 days in a row for elementary and secondary. The elementary is a little bit more broad. There's a visual art idea, there's a music idea. I think one day they dress up in costume and do something kind of theater-ish. So it kind of gets them that well-rounded side at the elementary level. But you could take a look at that. And then at the end of it, I've also listed out a bunch of online things that I found that I thought might be a good starting place for things you could add into your lessons. And then I will add to the notes here in the bottom bit.ly link. I have not been typing into it as we've been going, but I'll do that as soon as we get done. And I will definitely add a section about copyright guidelines, get that out to you, and I will pass along the social media guidelines, best practices for this time. I think that will be needed, definitely. Does anyone have?
We do have another question, and that's about how to message families, especially for younger children, when about missing programs and the things that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tricky. Those little guys, like I said, if you don't have a remind or something that your parents signed up for at the beginning of the school year that you can send messages through, then it's going to be difficult right now to get that out to them. Your best bet might be to create some sort of a little mini music newsletter or something that's just a 1 page or even a half page that your secretary or whoever gets to be at your building next week could maybe print off and send home in packets so the families at least know through that channel, if nothing else, if they're not on social media, if they don't have internet, etc. And then again, talking to your classroom teachers and letting them know seeing if they can get the information out. That would also be a good route to go. It's tough to communicate with 5, 6, 7-year-olds over the internet. Anything else, Kathleen?
That looks like the end of the questions. There's some discussion going on about money being due, how to handle that. That is one question. There's information about how to integrate music into the day. So the discussion on the chat, in the chat boxes is very valuable.
And something you might keep in mind for instruments at the end of the year, I haven't seen anyone put out guidance for this yet, but whether it's recorders or trombones, you might think about that the students would drop them off, and then maybe a week later, at the very least, you would pick them up. And I would suggest wearing gloves and a mask and disinfecting them if they're trombones, or taking those recorders home, putting them through the dishwasher. Try to get them as disinfected as you possibly can, because I'm sure that that's going to be a big problem for all of us, trying to figure out how to make sure that the virus doesn't come back through our instruments. We have an isolation room. That's a great idea. Yeah. And the virus does not live on surfaces, I don't think, past 3 or 4 days, but I don't know if you have spit in the trombone, I don't know how long that would be there and active. Could be a problem. Okay. Well, I will make sure that this recording gets up online, hopefully later today, but it might be tomorrow. And I will have the YouTube presentation. I will share that out as soon as we get off here. And the copyright and social media and all these great ideas, I will record down and share them out in the notes. So they will be available to you afterwards. I want to say before we get off, thank you all so much. I know this is a stressful time for all of you and trying to figure this out and jump on the technology/distance learning bandwagon quickly. It's just tricky and difficult and stressful. So I appreciate all of you, and thank you for hanging in there with your students and getting them what they need, because I think music is going to help kids get through this time. So you will be their lifesavers. You are the lifeboat. So thank you very much, everyone. I will have this up for you as soon as we get off. And good luck over the next few weeks. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was very helpful.
Yes,
Very helpful.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
no problem.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You are so welcome. Good luck. Goodness, there's a lot of comments. There we go.